right, 3, 2, 1. Welcome into the first ever Bet the W show on VSiN. I'm your host, Danielle Alvari, and I cannot tell you how excited I am to be launching this show, Bet the W. Obviously inspired by betting on the WNBA, which will be the main focus, but the W will also take on many meanings. We're always looking for W's in any sport, definitely in sports betting. And we'll also look to bet on women wherever we can. So I know that Calvin, my co-host for the day, who I'm going to bring in a moment, is also a bettor on women's college basketball. So we can look forward to that as that season approaches, but just looking to bet on women wherever we can and starting with the W. Also, a quick note, this will be a podcast, but while that is still in the works with technical difficulties, we're going to live right here on video for just the first 2 weeks or so. We didn't want to miss the start of the season, obviously. And with that, I'll welcome in my co-host for today, and hopefully throughout the season, he covers women's basketball for Sportsline and Her Hoop Stats, gives out bets on Spread the Floor. It's Calvin Wetzel. Calvin, are you excited for the season?
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this show too. I'm honored that I get to join you on the very first episode, and I can't wait to, anytime I'm not on, I'm going to be tuning in. So there's just so much to be excited about this week.
What are you most excited about storyline wise? Obviously, we have the super teams. Is there anything else?
Yeah, well, yeah, the super teams is number one. That's the basic answer. They could play up to 10 times this year. But outside of that, I'm really excited just to kind of look at the middle of the pack because I think 4 through maybe 10 or so could chaos. Yeah, we could have a last week of the season where you have half of the league still fighting for a playoff spot. Hasn't clinched, hasn't been eliminated yet. So that's what I'm really excited about.
And I'm glad you brought that up because as we're going through, we're going to look at each team in today's podcast. So we'll go through each team. We're going to go in order of the WNBA championship odds as put up by the book. So we'll start with the Aces and work our way down. But to your point about those teams all fighting for playoff spots, one of the things you can actually bet on this year for the WNBA is will they or won't they make playoffs? And I think that's a really tough one to bet this year because like you said, we could be down to the wire of the teams that are kind of fighting their way. And we even saw that last year. It's going to be even more so this year. And so with that, let's just get right into it. Before we start with the Aces, I'll just let the people know who, I don't know why they'd be listening to the pod, but if you're just new to the WNBA and you want to know about these super teams, we have one out east in the New York Liberty, and we also have one out west in the Las Vegas Aces, the defending champs who returned most of their team. They're the shortest shot here in the odds, seeing a plus 115 available, which is insane. I have a friend who actually bet the Aces preseason last year to win, which they did go on to do. I asked him what number he got. I think plus 200 preseason. Like they were predetermined that much to be the winners, and it's even more so this year. When I looked at this one, Calvin, positives for me, returned almost everyone, added Candace Parker, and really the only concerns last year were the bench, the mileage that they had to put on their starting five, and the only argument I've seen against the Aces for this year for them running it back is it's hard to do. It's hard to repeat. But what else is there?
Yeah, well, first off, you're right about the bench. They added Alicia Clark, which is huge, going to be way better than anyone they brought off the bench last year. But in terms of arguments against them, there are a couple. Number one, the Liberty are better than anyone they had to go up against last year, which we'll get to the Liberty in a minute. But they have at least one team that's going to be extremely tough competition. Number two, they have a lot of off-court stuff going on, which we don't necessarily have to get into all of it, but that's going to be a cloud hanging over them. That just a couple hours ago, as of this recording, the league took away, as of Tuesday, the league took away their 2025 first round pick. They didn't have a 2024 pick. So league took away their next first round pick. They have a lot of sort of drama going on. Will that be a distraction? Will Becky Hammond be the coach all year? Or is she going to go to Raptors? There's so many questions surrounding this team off the court.
Becky's not leaving. Come on.
I don't think
but
she is.
She is suspended for 2 games.
But
so.
There's that obviously as well for the first 2 games. And there's rumors, whether they're true or not. There's just so much floating around that could be a distraction, and it may not. They have a lot of veterans on this team who know how to play through distractions, so maybe it all works out. But if you're looking for a reason why the Aces may not repeat, other than just being hard to repeat in general, I think that's where you have to look.
This was an electric offense last year. I expect that to continue. The defense shored up a little bit come playoff time, and I hope that continues as we go into this season. I want to see more defense in this league. I love the defensive side of things. But we have 2 electric offenses here in the Las Vegas Aces and the New York Liberty, who, again, we'll get to next. And for that reason, a lot of MVP candidates on the Aces roster here. Kelsey Plum comes to mind. Asia Wilson, obviously the shortest shot for them. Do you think that takes away from any of their chances because they're on a super team from winning MVP?
Not really, maybe a little bit, but we saw, I mean, last year it was almost the same team with the exception of Candace Parker, and we still saw Asia
Hmm.
Wilson win the MVP. So it definitely could happen. DraftKings had 26 MVPs up, and all this whole starting lineup is five of the 26, including,
Yeah,
when we get to the Liberty, the top four are
just to put
two
it
on
in
the Aces,
perspective.
two on the Aces, and two on the Liberty. That's what we're talking about here. Um, but I mean, Asia's the front runner, obviously, on this team, but Kelsey Plum had maybe the best shooting season from 3 point that we've ever seen last year.
Yeah.
So if
Do you
she
think
can
she'll
do that again,
regress, or is that going to continue?
no, I don't, because she's playing with Candace Parker, who's only going to open things up even more for her with her passing
Agreed.
from the four positions. So no, I think it's sustainable.
Is 30 and a half wins too much for this total? Can they go over 30 and a half? I lean under. It's a 40 game season this year. Keep in mind they added 4 games to the schedule. It was 36 last year, which was a bump up from 32 or 30. And now we're up to 40 games. But 30 and a half, that's a big ask. They won 25, I believe, last year.
Yeah, it's going to be tough because even though we talked about their depth is a little bit improved from last year, they're still not an incredibly deep team. And obviously, Candace Parker, she's the second oldest player in the league, so she's probably not going to be playing 30 minutes a game. Might take a few
Ideally.
games of load management. So you never know with this team if they're going to get struck with an injury or just players needing rest, things like that. Uh, I still lean towards the over on this line. It was 29 and a half when
Okay.
it was first posted, but it's probably a pretty solid line because if they deal with injuries or anything like that, and just one player, that's all it's going to take to knock them under this line.
Yeah, I agree. And I think 31 out of 40 games won is a tall task, so I lean under here. And now we can move on to the other super team out east who also has the same win total, the New York Liberty. And something to keep in mind since you mentioned it, load management. We hear this a lot in the NBA, a sickening amount where you don't even know what player is going to play until about 5 minutes before tip-off. It's exhausting, but I guess it helps with live betting. That said, with WNBA, we don't see it as much. 40-game season now, so a little bit longer. But for these older players, it might be something to keep in mind. One of the older players that was added to the New York Liberty roster was Courtney Vandersloot from the Chicago Sky. That's champion Courtney Vandersloot, who's an incredible facilitator. I think leader in assists in the league. And then, of course, MVP two-time Breanna Stewart. And Jonquel Jones, MVP as well, all added to this New York Liberty roster. What do you think we'll see from them?
Well, to me, the biggest advantage that they have on the Aces is youth and depth. You mentioned Courtney Vandersloot; she's on the wrong side of 30, but with the exception of
Aren't we all?
her,
Oh,
this
jeez.
team, me too, I'm there. But she's the only one though on this team in terms of their core, I believe. When
Right.
you look at Breanna Stewart, Jonquel Jones, obviously Sabrina is very young, Ionescu,
Benijah Laney.
and Benijah Laney, and even some of their bench, which is also much deeper than the Aces bench. I feel like
Yes.
so. I think this team is going to be, they're going to start off maybe a little bit slower because of some of that cohesion. There, like you said, the Aces bring almost everyone back. They have all played together before. Some of these Liberty players have played together overseas, but a lot of them haven't played together in the WNBA. So it'll take them a little bit. And some of them were kind of injured in training camp. I believe tomorrow, Wednesday, is the first practice they're going to have with their whole starting lineup healthy, and then they play on Friday. So it might take them a little bit to get up to speed, but once they do, I think they are going to have the advantage by the end of the year because they're deeper, they're younger, they'll be healthier throughout the year because of that.
Hmm.
So I think if you're looking for an advantage for the Liberty, that's where you're looking.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that something I've heard people sort of spout is bet the overs in all of the Aces and Liberty games, but maybe not right away. And also be aware that the books know that these are good offensive teams. And last year, the Aces totals were insane. They were insanely high. And if you look at the finishing numbers for the year, they're pretty split on over under because they had such incredibly high totals. So they still went over some of those. They're perfectly capable of doing it, but they're set very high. So for me, even with this New York Liberty team, maybe while they're figuring it out, maybe I can look towards an under or something early in the season. Their defense was hit or miss last year, and I'm glad you brought up the cohesiveness because Danny Barlavi, who we've also had previewing the show earlier this week, mentioned this to me that some of these players have played and won championships together. Courtney Vandersloot, Breanna Stewart have played overseas, won championships together. Ionescu, Benijah Laney have also played together on Team USA with Breanna Stewart. So they've played together, but not on this team. So important to note. I do want to say it's sad on Tuesday they waived Dee Dee Richards.
Oh, so sad. I'm sorry, Miles
Sad.
Ehrlich, if you're watching. Biggest DD fan I know.
We gotta text. We gotta do a wellness check on him. But many MVP candidates on this team. Nevertheless, that's why not everybody can stay. Is there an MVP on this team for you, or is it too full like the Aces? Too many of them.
No, I think Brianna Stewart's the slight favorite over Asia Wilson right now on every sports book, and I think that's right. Jonquel Jones and Sabrina are the other
She's
two
on my
that are up
fantasy
there.
roster.
No big deal. No big deal. So yeah, I mean what the book should give us honestly is a market on will the MVP come from one of these two teams or not, because just in general, because that would be fascinating. We have markets
on. What odds would you give me, Calvin? What odds would you give me?
Ooh, that's a great question. Definitely minus odds on the MVP to come from one of these two teams.
That's a given.
Pretty heavy minus, probably upwards of minus 200 if we're being honest. Give you some pretty long. I'll go minus 250 on the MVP to come from one of these two teams, because I know we'll get to some other teams in a little bit, but I do think you would take that. You would take that. I would
take that. And here's what I'd want actually. I'd want odds for it to come from the Aces, to come from the Liberty separately, and then any other team.
I like that.
I would like. Yeah,
I like that
because I would err on the side of the Aces for that. I think I would.
The Aces do have probably a few more candidates, because the Aces' whole starting lineup is basically in play. I don't know if Courtney Vandersloot is really in play. At this point in her career. So, but
we're making her sound like a dinosaur.
she's not as old as Candace Parker, to be fair.
I got to meet her in person actually in the off season, and I totally fangirled and
as you should,
asked her for a picture. And she was incredibly polite and shy, and I was surprised by that. And she was also with Allie Quigley, who's also left the Chicago Sky.
Of course.
But all of this to say, we have two super teams. Which one do you lean towards? If one of these two teams is winning it, they're the shortest shots. Which one would you pick?
Books are all leaning towards the Aces, but I lean towards the Liberty for a lot of those reasons: the depth, the youth, and it's a long enough season that they'll have time to sort of figure out how to play together as a unit, and I think they'll get there.
Yeah, I can't decide, and I feel like my only reason for the Aces is it's hard to repeat. And that's not a good enough reason to me. So I think I'm going to go Aces. I'm going to go Aces here, but we're going to continue down on these teams. This team, I've heard it described as a sleeper, which is hilarious because we're third in the odds here with the Washington Mystics at 14-1. A sleeper, not so slept on now. People know about it. But it is hilarious to me that the reason that they're 14-1 is they only have one MVP and the other teams have two. Is that what I'm missing here? They have Elena Delle Donne, who's back to full strength, said she's never felt stronger. She was dealing with a lot of back issues in the past after winning their championship in 2019. Those are positives for me for this team. Elena Delle Donne back to full strength. Championship pedigree. They won in 2019. They've added some scoring, added Brittany Sykes to an already stellar defense. I'm excited about this team.
Yeah, well, the fact that the third team is plus 1,400 tells you all you need to know about the first two. But This team could definitely do some damage. They get to host the Liberty on opening night on Friday. And I've seen a lot of people say they might be betting the Mystics in that one because of the cohesiveness that we talked about. They might be a little bit more ready to go early in the season. We'll see what the line is. I can see myself betting the Mystics in that one as well. But definitely a team, clearly the third best team, in my opinion. If there's any team that can knock off these super teams, it's them. Because like you said, Elena Delle Donne back to full health. And it's easy to say that, right? But in their preseason game, she played quite a few minutes. So she backed it up. She looked very healthy in that game. Preseason doesn't mean a lot, but the fact that she was playing minutes in a meaningless game, I think really confirms that she is back to full strength. And last time we saw her at full strength, like you said, she was the MVP. That's the last time we saw her fully healthy for a full season. So Mystics are going to be a dangerous team. Shakira Austin in her second year should take another big jump. And Natasha Cloud, one of the best point guards, the first point guard to lead the league in assists other than Courtney Vandersloot in like 6 years or something like that. Wow. So great sleeper, air quotes, if you're not watching the video.
For the third shortest odds, such a long shot here. But I love this team. I have them at 14-1. I took that. I also, Dana Mattia, who's an incredible women's basketball bettor, will be here for the first Friday show to give out his best bets as well. Told me that there's still an Elena Delle Donne ticket available in Massachusetts at Caesars at 12-1 to win MVP. Yes, give it to me. Absolutely. This is the team I'm highest on. I was high on them last year too, and I don't regret it. I don't regret it. I think that they still could have won it last year. And my favorite stat from last year is they swept the Aces. They were the only team to do that in the regular season. So they know how to handle them. New head coach, though. Not new, because it's just Eric taking over for his father. A little nepotism happening there. Are you worried about that transition at all? I know that they've talked about increasing their pace of play, which may not help my favorite bet on the Mystics, which is the unders. But I don't think it's going to affect them that much. What do you think?
No, I don't think it's going to affect them in terms of winning games. I mean, he's been an assistant there for quite a while, so it's not too much of a transition. But I do think, like you said, that they've been talking about increasing the pace. They did that in their preseason game. Preseason game was actually the first preseason game to go over. If for anyone who was betting preseason, the first 6 games all went under because you see these players come off the end of the bench who may get cut, right? But the Mystics game went way over because they were pushing the pace. I think we're going to continue to see that. You and I both loved writing those Mystics unders last year, especially the second quarter unders,
yeah.
but
it was magic.
Those might be dead. We might be on Mystics overs this year.
Yeah, and it's a good thing to note that, again, it's the same thing that goes for the Aces and the Liberty with, bet the overs. These are great offensive teams. This is a great defensive team. The book is going to put this total very low, and it looks like they're going to be looking to push the pace. So maybe early on we get some over action. I also lean over their 24.5 game win total because I'm just really just full Mystic psycho this year. What do you think?
Yeah, that's another one I feel like is a pretty good line. But if I had to pick a side, I'd probably lean over too.
Okay.
I think, yeah, this team is as much as we talk about the gap from 2 to 3 in the league. I think there's a significant gap from 3 to 4 as well from the Mystics and anyone else. And like you said, their defense is elite. Their defense on that side of the ball can hang with the top 2. They're not as good offensively as the Aces and Liberty, but on the defensive end, I fully think they're right there, maybe even better than both of those.
Yeah. I'm high on the Mystics. Let's go to what the books say is the 4th team, the Phoenix Mercury at 25-1. Positives here, Brittany Griner is back. We're excited to see it. Mariah Jefferson added as well. My concerns for this team, their depth, health. We know Diana Taurasi, actually interesting stat, has only played in 72 of the 124 games over the last 4 seasons, which is 58% of the games. So we don't see her all the time. And head coach Vanessa Nygaard already said that load management is going to be in effect for some of these veterans like Taurasi. Skylar Diggins-Smith also out on maternity leave. Sophie Cunningham, I believe, rolled an ankle just last week. So depth is a concern for me here.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, we're still waiting on news about Sophie's injury, but she's a key piece, so that would be a big hit to their depth. Brittany Griner, obviously, love to see her back in the fold. Huge question mark in terms of if she's going to be at full strength, how close is she going to look, especially early on to how good she looked the last time we saw her. Like you said, Diana Taurasi, she's not going to play all 40 games. We know that. She's, as Brittany Griner called her, a walking fossil. So
my favorite. It's my favorite offseason quote.
Great quote. This team has a lot of paths to not be the 4th place team, in my opinion. One injury or just some of that load management, like you said, and this team could really struggle. So what do you have their win total at right now?
21.5 is what I have written down here. And I go under on that.
I think I'm going under on that as well.
Just they're one injury away is what I say about this team. I did think I was trying to find a spicier MVP pick than Elena Delle Donne at plus 750, even though I do like it. And apparently there's a 12-1 floating out there in Massachusetts at Caesars, like I said. But Brittany Griner, MVP 14-1. What are your thoughts? Because are we not all cheering for her to have an incredible season?
We are. I like that bet a lot because she has the narrative behind it, which isn't a bad thing. It's just that plays into voters' minds. It's an award. Yeah. Human voters vote for this award. We have to take that into account. And if we do look at the Aces and the Liberty, what you were talking about, maybe kind of canceling each other out and stealing some votes, or maybe some of their stats come down because they're sharing all of these stats with the super teams. At that point, you're probably looking at the best player on the 3 or 4 or 5 seed as the MVP, someone who dominates on a non-super team. And Brittany Griner is in prime position to do that if she's anywhere close to full strength coming back. So I think that's a great bet.
I completely agree. Yeah, so I do like possibly Brittany Griner for that MVP award just as a longer shot. But let's move on to the Dallas Wings, who went 18-18 last year. Best team against the spread, though, 21-14-1. The Mystics were also up there with 21 against the spread as well. But the best team, the Dallas Wings, against the spread. So a little bit underestimated. The positives for this team, they're shooting as far as the eye can see. They're scoring options. Tierra McCowan, a huge reason this offense was a top 2 offense at one point last season. Added Natasha Howard, Defensive Player of the Year. Added Diamond DeShields. Drafted Maddie Siegrist, who led the country in scoring for Villanova. But the big concern, it seems to be, is what is this team going to look like? How are they going to put all of these shooters together?
Yeah, well, shooting was a huge emphasis in the draft for them. And LT, they brought in a new coach who Trammell is a very defensive coach. And some of their players are great on defense. Natasha Howard is one that they brought in who's won a Defensive Player of the Year. Some other players maybe a lot more offensive minded on this team. So it's a lot. Exactly. It's going to be interesting to see how she kind of takes those different pieces and sort of forms them to her coaching identity. This is the team that I have the toughest time figuring out for that reason. This team could be the 4th best team, or they could miss the playoffs, in my opinion. This team could go a lot of different ways. It's really dependent to, like you said, how they mesh, how they fit those pieces together. And they have the shooting. Is the defense going to be there? What I'm looking at, though, Tierra McCowan, is if we see her a full season of starters minutes, because she only really started the second half of last year, and we saw her kind of take off, averaging doubles, 15, 16, 17 points a game. If we get that from her, and apparently she can kind of shoot threes now. She made one in the preseason. We'll see if that's an actual thing this season. If it is,
I want people to say that about me. That's my goal this year. She can kind of shoot threes. Yeah, that's right, guys. Kind of, I can. Yeah. Like I agree. She's also on my fantasy team, so I love to hear the Tierra McCowan hype. I'm excited for it. Also, total of 20.5. Like you said, this could be a really good team. It could go really horribly wrong. I go under 20.5. I'm going to err on the side of things going wrong.
I think I am too, because that's pretty much what we've seen from this team the last few years. I'll believe it when I see it, I guess, but we definitely see it. I'll lean under 20.5 on this one too.
Well, sometimes dreaming is believing. So we're going to go to the Atlanta Dream next, who I think are on the right path with head coach Tanisha Wright. She's on a roll. Defense was really solid last year. Foundations they built for this team. And I will say, I was on a different show earlier and someone asked, who's a team that you think people are too high on? And I did say the Dream, and only because I do think they're going to take a step forward. I do think they're going to be a lot better, but I think everyone knows it. And I think the books are high on them. I even saw them at minus almost 600 to make the playoffs, which they did just miss it by 1 game last year, and they only added. And again, I'm a big fan of defense. Their defense looked good last year. And they also seem to be buying into this new WNBA, which is sort of that space and pace versus using these traditional bigs. And I think that's going to work out for them big time. Ryan Howard, Rookie of the Year. Perimeter shooting was huge for the team last year. They added Alicia Gray. A lot to be excited about for this team.
Yeah, Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray are going to be the keys to whether this team takes that big jump or not, because Alicia Gray, obviously a huge addition and one of the best players in the league, in my opinion. And then Ryan Howard, we saw what she can do last year, but when you come in as a rookie, sometimes it's hard to start. When you're a high volume rookie like she was, you're going to miss some shots. That's just how it goes. And we saw her score a lot, but she didn't do it very efficiently. If she can take that next step and start to do it consistently, like you said, and efficiently, and they have a 1-2 punch with those two, that's going to go a long way. I do see what you're saying. A lot of people are really high on this team. I am too. But like you said, so are the sports books. So it's going to be interesting. They know. Yeah, they're getting better. To sportsbooks' credit, they're getting better at following the WNBA.
And I don't know if this is just the most obvious things ever, but I love defense, and I hate teams that turn it over. And this was a big problem for this team last year. Last season, they had the most turnovers in the league, and they were last in assists. No bueno. Do you think that improves? Because their win total set at 19.5.
Yeah, I mean, it has to improve. They were last in both. There's only one direction to go is up.
It can't get worse. There we go. That's positive. Thank you, Calvin.
Exactly.
Can't get worse.
I don't think that's going to be a strength of theirs. I think they're going to hang their hat on the defensive end. Hopefully they can make some shots. I don't think, ball control and ball protection is ever really going to be a strength the way this team is constructed. Alicia Gray is going to help with that, certainly. Mm-hmm. But
it made it very hard to live bet this team last year.
It did. They were very inconsistent. They had some games where they went on the road and blew out some good teams, and they had some complete stinkers too. So
They beat the Aces at the end of the year.
they did. They did. It's
People don't forget.
we might see some inconsistencies again, but this team's gonna have a really high ceiling for sure. I like defense too. That's what I like about you, Danielle. I like defense. So a lot of people don't. A lot of people just want to see scoring. I love me some defense, so I like this team a lot.
Well, and you're certainly not getting it in the NBA right now, so let's watch some W. Connecticut Sun, I put them much higher in my power rankings, but this is where the odds have them almost at 40-1 or longer. Positives here: cohesive unit. These players have played together for the most part. Some veterans. They added some scoring here. I mean, Rebecca Allen, Tiffany Hayes, but they did lose their head coach Kurt Miller, and they lost Jonquel Jones to the Liberty, Jasmine Thomas out to LA, and also Kurt Miller out to LA. Do you think that's going to be a big problem for this team?
I don't know how good Stephanie White is going to be. She might be great or she might not be. So
unproven.
We'll see. Unproven. I think unproven is the right word. Yeah. So in terms of the head coaching, yeah, we'll see. Jasmine Thomas got hurt, early on last year and missed the rest of the season. So they're pretty used to playing without her at this point. They lost Courtney Williams, but they brought in Tiffany Hayes, who I love Courtney Williams, but I believe that's an upgrade at the 2 position. And then you're really talking about Jonquel Jones, definitely scoring wise, right? Jonquel Jones is the biggest loss by far, of course, MVP 2 seasons ago. You're replacing her in the starting lineup with Brianna Jones, who the last few seasons been one of the best, probably the best bench player
Jones for Jones
in the entire league. Exactly. I don't think the starting lineup is going to take nearly as much of a drop off as maybe what people think. Obviously, they don't have 2 elite centers now. They only have 1. They're not bringing in that backup. So maybe the depth takes a little bit of a hit, but I'm with you. I think you had them 4th in your power rankings, if I remember correctly. That's where I have them too, right below the Mystics.
Yeah. Are we going to talk about Alyssa Thomas?
Yes. Big MVP candidate. I saw her as of this morning, shot. As of Tuesday morning, plus 5,000 on Caesars. Way too high. Way too high. 50-1.
That's a great one.
And what we talked about, maybe if Aces and Liberty players sort of cancel each other out and you look at some player who dominates for one of the next best teams, Alyssa Thomas, maybe the best candidate to be that player who dominates
best
for
long
the
shot for sure.
Best team. I love it.
Yeah, best long shot in this category for me. Nevertheless, in my article, I did say that I lean under 22.5 for this team. There were 20.5s available too. I knew some people took overs on that. But I will say, if you think the Sun will be a team, a force to be reckoned with, if you will, again, shout out Dana Mattia. He gave out a great bet of Sun to win 25 or more games. This was on FanDuel at plus 550. So if their total set it, they got to win 23 games, 2 more wins, and you get them at plus 550 instead of this coin flip. I love that.
Yeah, I like that. I am one of the people you mentioned who got over 20.5 when they first posted it.
Okay.
But at this point, yeah,
one of the lucky ones.
With what's available, yeah, I have no life, so I stay refreshing.
Calvin's the person who's on time to things. I'm the person who shows up like, where can I still get in? Can I still get in on the action?
The funny thing is, I'm not on time to anything in life, but I am on time to all of the betting odds. That's the only thing I'm on time to. In terms of what's available now, though, I love the 25 plus that you just brought up. I think that's a better bet than the over at this point.
Especially at plus 550. I think that's great. That was huge value brought in by Dano. So excited for that. Chicago Sky, positives. No coaching changes. Still have Wade. Marina Mabry added. So some shooting. Kalia Copper could be her MVP year, perhaps, because now it's pretty much her team.
Yeah, this is a lot of people aren't going to like this. And, I would love to be proven wrong, but I'm not high on the Sky at all. I think
you have a lot of friends who are Sky.
I live in Illinois, so I got to be careful. But no,
wear a hat.
Kalia Copper is great. They brought in some players who can definitely shoot the ball and score the ball, but they're all none of them are really efficiency scores. They're all volume. You look at Marina Mabry, you look at Courtney Williams, and even like Isabel Harrison at the center position. Those are all players who they take a lot of shots to get their points. And I don't see this offense really being particularly efficient. And it's not like that's going to be at the expense of having an elite defense like it is with the Atlanta Dream. I'm not sure if I see this defense necessarily being top tier either. They had a good preseason. They won the Canada game. They were 2-1 in the preseason. They beat the Lynx. Mm-hmm. I don't know if preseason means anything or not. We'll see. But I took the under on this win total at 17.5 when it posted. I don't know what's it at now. Maybe 16.5?
16.5.
16.5. I'd still go under there.
Yeah, I would too. I still lean that way. 45-1 to win the title. I don't think so. Minnesota Lynx. Missed the playoffs last season in Sylvia Fowles' farewell tour. So upsetting. They obviously lost Sylvia to retirement. Maya Moore officially retired. But Cheryl Reeves is still head coach. And of the head coaches in the league, that's who I want to play for. Nafisa Collier is also back. She was gone with her pregnancy. She came back at the end of last season for just about a couple of games, but now is the lone captain on the team, which they've never done before. The only thing that I thought was interesting that I read was Reeves said they're shifting to a 5-out scheme. So quick, fun offense, but do they have the shooting to pull that off? I don't think so.
You don't. I think they might.
Because they signed Tiffany Mitchell, you think, okay?
Tiffany Mitchell did look good in the preseason game with them, I think. But, if they go small, you have Duntas at the 5, Nafisa Collier at the 4, especially if Fee is back to full strength. Aerial Powers, she's kind of hit or miss. At her peak with the Mystics, great shooter. And then Kayla McBride, very consistent shooter throughout her career. People talk about this team. The big knock is that they have a bunch of wings and they don't have a point guard or a center, which is true. But I think today's basketball, that's not as big of a deal as it was maybe 10 years ago. It's with how positionless everything has gotten, and if they're moving to a 5-out system. So I think the Lynx could maybe surprise some people. I would pick them over the Sky. The books have it flipped. I would have the Lynx in the playoffs over the Sky, though.
Interesting. Okay. I'm pretty low on the Lynx this year. Their win total is 17.5, and this is my favorite win total bet. I like under 17.5.
Wow, we're going to go head-to-head on that one, Danielle. Though
you like the over?
I do, if I have to pick. I don't like it as much as some of those other bets.
I will say go with Calvin on the win totals because I didn't love any of these, even though this was my favorite one.
Yeah, well, we'll revisit this, and we'll see who to go with at the end of the season. But
we will. That's why we have a recording. We can check later. Diamond Miller's also on this team. She's second in the odds for Rookie of the Year, sitting around plus 200. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it. She scored 19 points in the first preseason game. I think she's going to get a lot of touches, even if she comes off the bench with this logjam at the wing positions. She's still going to get a lot of playing time. Aaliyah Boston's clearly the favorite, but there's not a lot of other rookies outside of Aaliyah Boston. They're going to get enough playing time to even be in the conversation, and I think Diamond Miller is one of the few.
Yeah, I agree. I think just value-wise, maybe you're getting a better shot there than you're getting on Aaliyah Boston. Unless, do you happen to know, is there better Aaliyah Boston odds anywhere?
There is. If you look around, there is a book that's still hanging plus 150 on Aaliyah Boston. You gotta go find it. Yep, think outside the box. Most of them are at minus 200, minus 250, so that value is gone. But if you can find that plus 150, go grab it.
Yes, and they did also waive Bria Beal on Tuesday, who they just drafted this year, which was really sad. But we continue on. We press on. Los Angeles Sparks. New head coach in Curt Miller, added Jasmine Thomas, added Azurá Stevens, who can hopefully stretch the floor for them a little bit more. My one bet I liked for this team, and I don't love it anymore because it was at plus 400, but to make the playoffs at plus 200. I think they could make the playoffs. What do you think?
I still like that at plus 200. I think Curt Miller's a winner.
Yeah?
Curt Miller's a winner. We've seen it. He's just, he knows how to win, and we've seen it how many times. And, maybe he hasn't won in the finals, but in the regular season, Curt Miller knows how to win, and I think this team has enough pieces. You don't have to be 500 to make the playoffs in this league. You're 7th or 8th out of 12, and you're in. So, to me, at plus 200 to even just sneak into the top 8, that's still too long.
Yeah, that was my only thing for this team. Do you have any thoughts on this team even their win total?
16.5? I lean over on that one for the same reason, and I think they good value to make the playoffs. I lean this as being a 7th or 8th type of team.
All right. I'm not as high on them. I hope they prove me wrong. They do have Curt Miller. Let's see if he can get everybody in line. The Seattle Storm, we're getting towards the bottom here, unfortunately. Should be solid defensively. Look at some unders on this team. They added Kia Nurse. They still have Sammy Whitcomb. Jordan Horston was their draft pick. But they lost Brianna Stewart, and Sue Bird retired. So for me, it's under 16.5 wins.
Yeah, so I was putting together some stats for the Storm for their ESPN game coming up. And they returned 31% of their scoring and 27% of their minutes. So
great.
They basically lost like over 2/3 of the team in terms of production. Gabby Williams looks like she's not going to be playing for them this
Still
year.
In France.
So exactly, yep, because their team won the other day. So you're talking about really in terms of returning production, rotation-wise, not just starters. Ezzy Magbabor and Jewel Lloyd, that's about it. They have all sorts of rookies and second years that are going to not only make the team, but maybe find their way into the rotation. Definitely going to be sort of a learning curve and a rebuilding year for this team. Uh, so I'm not particularly high on them, but I don't think the books are either.
The only person I talked to who was looking to the over was Mark Schindler. He believes in Jewell Loyd. He does. He believes in Jewell Loyd. So
My guy Mark believes in everyone. Shout out to Mark.
yeah, bless his heart. Indiana Fever. They've been dead last 2 years in a row. They won 5 games last year. They were 13-22 against the spread. Or just horrific. Not helpful in live betting either. They were last in both offensive and defensive rating last year. And then also on Tuesday, waived Destiny Henderson. Very upsetting for me. But they did draft Aaliyah Boston first overall. That is a huge bolster to this defense, which, again, they need defense and offense here. And they have a lot of other young talent. Alyssa Smith, injured last year, coming back. Erica Wheeler's back. Kelsey Mitchell, probably their best player. What do you think is the ceiling for this team?
Well, the ceiling is the playoffs.
Sure.
But
which I think 22-1 for them to make it last I checked.
Yeah, that's not terrible. That's not terrible. They could, because of this logjam
it's
that
so
we talked
long,
about.
And you're like, it's not terrible.
I mean, this is still the worst team in the league right now.
Yes.
But
yes,
they've improved and they've added some pieces to where if things really go right for them, combined with some of these other teams at the bottom who are going to struggle a lot, maybe they could find their way into the 8 seed. They, like you said, Aaliyah Boston, that's a big addition. Alyssa Smith won the Athletes Unlimited, the AU competition in the spring, and she's looked a lot better coming into year 2. So that'll be a really big front court combo for them. I still think they're a year or 2 away from really competing. And I'm still going under on their win total of 10.5. I think some books have 9.5, some books have 10.5. Go find a 10.5 if you're going to take the under, because last year they won 5 games. Obviously, you get
we added 4 to the schedule
this year. You get the extra 4. Yep. I don't know if that's going to be enough to push them over all the way to 11. They need 11 to clear this line. I think that's a big ask. But they're on the right path.
Maybe not this year, maybe next year. And I will say, I think that Aaliyah Boston's price on Rookie of the Year is too rich for me, because it could be Diamond Miller.
It could be, or it could be Haley Jones. We didn't talk about her with the Dream, but she's at plus 3,000. If you're looking for a big long shot, she's one who should at least be in the rotation, and 30-1, that's not bad. So there's a couple other contenders.
I'm worried about her perimeter shooting. It's needs improvement is what I'll leave it at. We're going to wrap things up now. That's all of the teams. And I want to know who's going to be in the finals, what 2 teams, and who's winning it.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to go crazy or spicy or anything. We're going Aces and Liberty in the finals. Okay. And I'm going Liberty to win it all.
Okay.
Where you go?
I'm going to go Liberty Mystics in the final.
Oh, she did
Mystics to win it. Mystics to win it.
Why not?
Let's go. Yeah. You guys can see I'm probably too high on them, but that's what makes this fun. I'm really excited to do this podcast this year. Again, Bet the W podcast. It's not a podcast technically yet. It's going to live on video for this first 2 weeks, but we'll get it on that podcast as soon as possible. And then make sure that when we do, you subscribe to it, and you can catch me and Calvin. And Calvin, I'm really excited to have you on this season. And thanks so much for being on the inaugural first episode.
Oh yeah. Thank you for having me. It was great.
All right. Make sure you check out the VSiN YouTube channel to get the rest of these for the week. We'll have best bets for Friday. That is the first day of games. And we'll also look ahead to the weekend. And then we'll be back again next week. So join us on the Bet the W show.